some handy things. It's got sunrise, sunset time calculators and things on it.
So you're saying that you can always be found?
No, not with this. I can find my way. I don't think it's got a tracker on it.
Yeah, it does.
Does it?
Yeah, but you got to enable it. But if he goes hiking somewhere, Annie, he can literally drop a pin, and if he gets lost, he knows how to get back to that pin. If his watch doesn't die.
I'll be okay going out into the field next door then. I'm good.
Yeah, because those batteries last. Mine lasts about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
On a single charge.
20. Get to your shed.
Who gave him the switchboard? Lord.
Okay, I want to go back to this pin thing. So do you drop it in the woods or do you drop it on your phone?
It's on the watch.
No, you can mark it on the phone, and
I
then
know that, Tyler. I'm just making a joke.
Annie's gonna go on first. Then yeah.
And then you're kicking me off, right? That's what you're telling me right now. I'm going on. And then
I
you're
think you
kicking
should.
off.
I think you should stay.
You might actually learn something if you stay.
I actually learn a lot during the day.
I know.
I learn that you get new nicknames as the day goes on.
Isn't that right, Pooh Bear?
I really don't know why I subjugate myself to this torture.
Deep down, you actually love it. You like the attention.
Oh yeah, let me tell you, it's some good, greedy attention.
He's very needy, Annie.
Says
Very sensitive. Very
I'm a bear. Very sensitive bear until I get angry, and I'm just a big T-Rex everywhere. I go crazy. That's what I've been told. If you stand in front of me, I can't see you. If you're in my peripheral, you're done. You're in the way.
If you're T-Rex bear, then you can't grab us. So it's all like the dog saying all bark, no bite kind of issue.
Leave that one alone. Oh, great. We got the audience saying Pooh Bear now. Thanks, Simon. It's awesome. It's great.
Nice job, Annie. Nice job.
Did someone say Pooh Bear?
Mike Hoberacker did.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Tyler. Yeah.
Wasn't
Big
Pooh
cuddly.
Bear like on Husky and Starch or whatever that show
Starsky
was?
and Hutch, yeah.
Husky and Starch.
Yeah. But I think he's referring to the cartoon animal.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not that
There
Pooh
you-
Bear. The cartoon Pooh Bear. Love today's show so far.
Me and the Smurfs?
Spectacular.
Are you talking about the Smurf program?
No.
No.
Winnie the Pooh. Pooh
Winnie the
Bear.
Pooh.
Oh, that.
Big round.
Big
slow.
round fat fella that's yellow and likes to eat a lot of honey.
He was kind of a Buddha of the bear world.
It's true. It's true. Simon's kind of like Eeyore. Okay.
It's a very English thing. If you ask me how I am,
How's the day?
Okay, I'm okay.
Okay.
Okay. It's cool.
No emphasis. No excitement.
Tyler's like, he went,
Okay.
oh my God, it's fantastic.
Okay. Okay.
Is that really a British thing or is that just a
Yeah.
stereotype?
Yeah. How are you? I'm good.
Okay.
Everything's good. Always.
Yep.
No excitement whatsoever.
I'm off to go find the coldest thing that I can get my hands on. And I cannot think of a more fitting place than this.
Scott Roberts oxygen.
Speaking of cold things, we all know that canned air can get things cold.
I breathe that
But why?
stuff.
This can has pressurized liquid difluoroethane. Now, difluoroethane has a really low boiling point. That means when I push the nozzle, it escapes really quickly because it is boiling away. Now, we use something else that has a really low boiling point. In fact, it is the lowest of all the boiling points to cool things on the James Webb Space Telescope. And that element is helium. Helium's low boiling point has come in handy in a number of ways in this mission. The Webb telescope traveled from Goddard Space Flight Center to Johnson Space Center to be tested in Chamber A. Now, this is the only thermal vacuum chamber large enough to fit Webb. Chamber A even got an update so it can use helium to get even colder. We also use helium in a special refrigerator called the cryocooler on the telescope itself. Now, one of the reasons that Webb has a cryocooler is because it has to operate at very cold temperatures. This is because it detects in the infrared spectrum of light. Infrared, it's something that we experience as heat. And so the telescope needs to avoid any sources of heat that do not come from the cosmos. Webb, in fact, is so sensitive to any infrared light that the science instruments need to be cooled to avoid detecting heat it creates by just operating. 3 of the instruments are cooled passively by sitting on the cool side of the sun shield. The last instrument, MIRI, needs to be cooled more than the other instruments, to 7 degrees Kelvin, using the cryocooler. Now, 7 degrees is unimaginably cold. I have here the coldest thing that I could get my hands on. Ooh. Might as well use this stuff up. And it is dry ice. And this is still 194 degrees Kelvin, much warmer than Webb will be at its coldest point. All right, we know that Webb has to get cool using the cryocooler, but how does helium make it cool? It's because the atoms are really small and can move really fast. So helium only has 2 protons and 2 electrons. That means it is super light, and it means that the gases move really quickly. That's why it tends to float away. And because the gases expand so quickly, it also means that it also cools things really quickly. So when things go from a pressurized liquid to a gas, they tend to cool. You see that same effect if you use a pressurized pot. When it's liquid and boiling, it is very, very hot. The steam escaping it actually cools really rapidly. If you were to put your hand above, right above where that steam is coming out, it's gonna be really hot. But even just 1 foot above that, and that air is touchable. This is called the Joule-Thomson effect. If you blow in your hand with an open mouth, the air is gonna be hot. But if you purse your lips, the air has to expand more rapidly, and it has a cooling effect. The cryocooler's liquid helium expands and contracts and expands again in a chamber similar to this. And because it needs to get even colder, it has 2 chambers. And this is going to allow us to see the developing universe.
Well, it's Happy Friday, everybody. And this is our 25th episode of Focus on Astrophotography. Let's bring everybody on here. We've got Tyler Bowman, who's doing like some drum-like chest beating. And we've got Simon Lewis. And we were doing the Macarena a little bit earlier, and then Annie, who wouldn't do the Macarena with us. So anyways, welcome to Focus on Astrophotography. And Simon and Tyler are going to talk about being an astrophotographer in a light polluted world. But I think we've got Annie coming on first. So Annie, we'll turn it over to you.
Hey, everybody. I'm just coming on because I always like to crash the party as we're finding out as the weeks go on, because I just got to jump on. Anyways, so the big thing is I really want to announce that we have an astrophotography contest going on. It is on meteors, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler.
That's right.
It's on meteors, and so we really need some entries. We don't have any. We have no entries.
No, 0 entries?
Yeah.
0.
I know Simon's got a lot of pictures.
Can't lie. He said, oh yeah, there's only a few entries.
No, we
know people out there have night sky shots of meteors.
Mhm.
Right? Meteor streaks across. How do you not have an astrophotograph without at least one meteor streak through it? So,
yeah, so we really need Tyler. Would you please mute? Thank you. Like, I can hear myself. Tyler and I have a 1-inch wall in between us, and so anything I say, like, anyways. Okay, so we definitely need some entries. We have no entries. So hey, 1 entry. Your first place winner. Look at that. So
I'm going to enter.
Easy win.
So definitely enter. And so it's on underneath Explore Alliance. It'll say Meteor Astrophotography Contest. You'll just go click on that, and then you'll enter your submissions. It's 2 pictures per person. And yeah, so there's 0. We have 0, and we're going to the end of the month. So it's the 7th of January, and we're going to January 31st. So we need to really get that in. So, and then I guess Tyler wanted me to announce our lovely guest, which I've had a lot of fun talking to him. It's been actually great. He came up with a new nickname for our lovely host. So
what is that nickname?
It's Pooh Bear.
It was wait a minute. There's another guy here in the chat who claims to actually be Pooh Bear. So I don't know who's the real Pooh Bear.
But see, is it Pooh Bear with an H or P-O-O Bear?
Just P-O-O.
That's how bad he's been.
Well, then we'll just stick to the original.
Okay.
Which was T-Rex Bear. Okay, so anyways, back to our guest, which is Simon, and he is located in the south part of New Zealand, an astrophotographer and lecturer. And I've had a lot of fun picking at him and Tyler, and it's been really, really fun to get to know you, Simon. And so, yeah, so there you go. Take it over. Oh, he's an ambassador. He's one of our new ambassadors. So if you're interested in that and curious about that program, email me at explorealliance@explorescientific.com, and I can give you all the information on that. So he is one of our newest ambassadors with us. So it's good. It's good to have you aboard, Simon. So
Thanks, Annie. I've been a long time user of Explore Scientific equipment, and thank you for inviting me on to be an ambassador. And of course, getting to know all you guys. I've known Tyler for a wee while now, and I've appeared on a few of your shows, which has been really, really good. And yeah, it's been good. And it's been good having fun with Tyler, because we have a similar sense of humor.
And I love your shirt there, Simon.
Oh, thank you. No, I thank you.
Awesome. How did you get it?
From Pooh Bear.
We lost your audio there, Simon.
Simon
from Pooh Bear.
From
Pooh Bear sent it?
I sent it to him.
That's good.
I wanted to make sure that we take care of our ambassadors. That's better.
Yeah, I don't know why it keeps swapping microphones here, but yeah, no, I have my my contacts, and yeah, thank you very, very much, Tyler. So Tyler is and I have been working together for a wee while now on setting his astrophotography rig up at home. Now, unlike Tyler, I don't live in a light polluted area. I live out in the country, so I'm quite fortunate. But many astrophotographers have the unfortunate locations of being inside city zones or light polluted areas, but that doesn't mean that you can't do astrophotography. It does mean that you have to adapt and improvise, but you can still get by. And there are some really active astrophotographers who are generating some fantastic images. Award-winning images, really, because if you look at astrophotographers like Doug Struble, he lives in the Chicago suburbs. Chuck Ayoub is another one that they really struggle with light in those areas, but using different techniques and different equipment and adapting the way that they capture, then they can create some fantastic images. So, and this is something that Tyler is having to learn as well, because with setting up his gear at home, in Springfield Springdale is quite hard, because there is a lot of light pollution. We've already found, trying to capture some of the more fainter objects that you're having to struggle with that light. So I guess one of the first things to think about is just don't give up. Whatever, astronomy is one of these hobbies that you can do backyard astronomy, and whatever you do, you make the most of. And so if you do live in a light polluted area, then don't give up. There are, you can, even simple things like moving into a darker spot within the city boundary. If you've got a local park that has maybe less light around you, go find a dark spot. I've even seen people finding dark spots around the backs of buildings or behind fences or hedges, just to sort of, try and cut down that light pollution as much as they can from the local areas. Tyler and I have been actually talking in the last days, because one of his customers has a problem that is liable to be related to security lights. And that is something that is also a real challenge. Light pollution isn't just from lighting within the local area that you're in or street lighting. We even get a lot of light pollution from things like security lights. These work at IR, and a lot of our cameras that we use are very sensitive to this, and so you can be flooding your camera with IR light, and you won't see that with your own eyes. So that
Hey,
is
Simon.
also.
Hey,
Yes.
we have a question from the audience. So
Sure.
Pekka Hautala is asking which one would be better to photograph with: a DSLR, less astro modified and fully modified, less long exposures, or more shorter exposures? And that is overall astrophotography.
It depends on what you're
okay.
shooting.
Yeah.
As well.
So as Tyler says, it depends what you're shooting, but in general, within a city with a lot of light pollution, what you're wanting to do is to capture the object light, not the street lighting or the light pollution around you. That generally means much shorter exposures. There are some calculators. If you have a look at cloudy nights on the forum there and look for exposure calculators, there are some calculators that you can put in how fast your telescope is, what kind of optics you're using, what kind of camera, and you can actually calculate out how long your exposures would be. Unfortunately, in light polluted areas, that can be literally measured in seconds before the light around you is swamping the sensor. Now, the other way to get around that, you're talking about modified and non-modified cameras. If you do live in a light polluted area, then you may want to consider installing a filter. And you can install different types of filters. There are light pollution filters that notch out. I don't know, in Tyler, in America, do you have a problem with the sodium street lights? Is that sodium vapor lights? Is the orange this orange?
It depends. I have those type of lights in my neighborhood, but since I image in the backyard, I don't get a whole lot of them. But I'm sure there are probably certain astrophotographers that would have to deal with the sodium, the lights.
Yeah. So these days, sodium vapor is these orange lights, street lights you see, which you can notch out these using a filter. The other challenge these days is LED street lights as well, are causing problems because they have certain color shifts. And that can also cause you issues. They're not as easy to filter out, but you can certainly use a light pollution filter. There's a light pollution filter called an L-Pro that can really help you. Another way of getting around that would be to start to use what we call narrowband imaging. So narrowband imaging is looking at hydrogen, oxygen, and sulfur, the typical sort of components made up of emission nebula. Yep. That generally images through a very, very small bandwidth that can cut out a lot of the light around you. The filters are very narrow, and they look at specific frequencies, and that can be something that you can do too.
Smaller that nanometer, so smaller the number that is that the more expensive the filter will get?
Yeah, generally. You can think of that 7, 5, 12 nanometer range. You can think of it as a doorway that as a hole in a wall. The smaller the number, the tighter the bandwidth of the filter. Generally, though, as you say, the smaller the number in nanometers in the bandwidth, the more expensive they get.
Yeah, they get more expensive.
If you're imaging in the middle of a city and the only way that you can image is via narrowband, then potentially that is a way. And people do image in the middle of big cities. There's a guy that images, Yannick. He images in the middle of Tokyo.
That's a
and
class
you can't
9,
imagine.
isn't it?
You could, yeah, it is in borderline. Yeah. You can't imagine that. It's like imaging under the a football game floodlights, and he is doing imaging in the middle of a big city like that. I have some colleagues there in Christchurch, which is our local city here, and they image in the middle of the city as well using filters. So it's not an impossibility, and you can narrowband image using a color camera with a screw-on filter. You can get a dual band filter.
Now, do they make
tri-band filters?
Do they make narrowband for one-shot colors? Because mostly narrowbands for mono. I mean, can you use a narrowband for one-shot color?
Yeah, you could. The challenge is separating those colors out. There are some people that are using those narrowband filters. However, the technology is moving on. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these filters now are starting to get really, really narrow for dual band filters. And so what we're talking about these dual band filters is these are a screw-on filter that screws onto either the camera or in the telescope optics, and they allow light through at maybe 2 frequencies. So that would be, say, hydrogen and oxygen. And you can separate those out in post-processing to come out with, red and, blue. There are tri-band filters available as well. They are slightly wider, but the filter manufacturers are getting really, really clever because they realize that these are ways of helping people image in light polluted areas. So, choosing the right exposure, not going too long in terms of exposures, and unfortunately that really is a bit of what we call suck it and see. You really need to do some, have a go, see, take some images, see how fast you can get in terms of optics. Obviously the faster the optics, the lower the exposure times as well, the more light you're gathering. See how long an exposure you can get before you start to swamp the camera sensor with light. Look at narrowband filters or dual band filters for color, or try and find an alternative area within the city. The other thing is choose nights that are clear. You know, obviously, if you get a night that is has a lot of water vapor, fog, mist, anything like that, in a city boundary, that light is just going to get bounced everywhere. So either a dry evening or low humidity, low clouds, or no cloud is best. And try and narrow it down. Yes, Danny.
Hey, Simon, we have a couple more questions from the audience.
Fire away.
So Pekka Hautala is asking again, what filter do you need to double the exposure time? And then there's two more, but I'm gonna let you answer that one first.
So filters, so narrowband filters, because they have a very, very tight window, that means for those kind of filters, then you would want to expose longer because there is less light hitting the sensor. So broadband versus narrowband will always allow you to expose longer. So a dual band or tri-band narrowband filter or a dedicated mono and filters for narrowband would always allow you to expose much longer than just say a straight broadband response in a typical camera, i.e. no filter. That you could be broadband, you could be in seconds. You might be up to 30 seconds or maybe 45 seconds or a minute, depending on how much light you've got. If you live in a town that has some light pollution, but not, you could be maybe a 5 or a 6 on the Bortle scale. The chances are you might not need much in the way of filtering. You might be surprised.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question, and I don't know much about filters, so if you've already answered this, then say, Annie, I've already answered that. So, wait, I gotta find it. Bill's Astro is asking what filters for narrowband with one-shot color cameras.
So there are a variety of manufacturers. Some of the vendors like ZWO make ZWO Duo, which is a dual band filter. Antlia make them. Optolong make one. OPT have got their own Radian brand, which is another one, and they can be dual or tri-band filters. So there are a variety of manufacturers now. Optolong and Antilla, they're having a bit of a battle at the moment. Who can produce the best filter in these dual band filters? So, and just before Christmas, they brought out some new filters as well, some new dual band filters. So it's a changing market, and there is always some new stuff coming out, and they're always, narrowing that bandwidth, but also improving the responses. So definitely shop around if you're interested in one. But in some cases, be prepared to, require to pay quite a lot of green stuff. Yeah. Not cheap.
Okay, the next question is again from Pekka Hautala. It says, is IDAS LPS D2 good for fully modified DSLR?
Yes.
Tyler.
I do it because it's fun. But yes, Pekka, the IDAS LPZ is a great sensor. It's great for light pollution. In a fully modified camera, you'll actually be able to detect more of the hydrogen alpha a little bit better than without it, depending on what the exposure you set to. Remember, with DSLRs, the longer that exposure, you'll get a little bit more hot pixels. You get thermal noise. So it may look real grainy when you start processing it as well. So you always got to remember, you kind of have to just push the envelope, but not over push the envelope, because you can't overcook the data and it just looks terrible at that point.
There's a lot of experimentation. If you live in a light polluted area, then this is an area where you have to look at, what gear you've got, what kind of light you're dealing with, colors, the source it's coming from, and the strength it's coming from, and what you have in your night sky. So the other thing as well is if you live in maybe live in a light polluted area, but you live in a low pollution, which is not light pollution, but a low pollution area, you may have less of a problem than somebody living in a big city with a lot of pollution, because even the pollution itself, dust, exhaust gases from vehicles can cause problems. That haze that you see in cities will also bounce the light as well. So
what did we try to go for the other night, Simon? Was it
the Witch Head Nebula? Yeah,
I cannot see it from my backyard. I can't even.
Yeah,
but I tried to shoot.
So for those who may not know, the Witch Head Nebula is a reflection nebula. So this is light that is off dust inside a nebula cloud, and they're lit up by stars, and that's what you can see around. The Witch Head is up by Rigel, and I think it's getting a lot of the light from Rigel. The problem with Tyler is not Tyler himself, but in his location, there is quite a lot of background light. So he has a little sensor on his telescope, on the calculator, on the little computer, that tells him what kind of seeing he is seeing on this in his backyard, and is way different to what I see. So much so that when we looked at the Witch Head Nebula on his camera the other night, we would not actually seeing the data we're looking for. So he needs a darker space. So
or a better filter.
Yeah, or a different filter. Yeah. Put the L Pro on it.
L Pro will probably help negate some of that, so we can see it. That's something we'll have to experiment with, and that's the beauty part about astrophotography. Yeah, it does cost a lot of money. Experiment. That's the best part. Always ask your buddy, because we're a small little tight-knit group, and what you think may work for you, see if your buddy will let you borrow the set equipment. Now, granted, he may not be giving you telescopes or letting you try them. Filters are a little bit more reasonable to toss around, but you always have to experiment, and that's what I'm going to have to experiment, because I like the dark nebulae, because I blame Simon. He's rubbed off all that on me now, and having monochrome cameras, I'd be able to detect more of the darker dust lanes because of the filters. Granted, I have to wait till the moon's completely out of sight, because even if it's a little sliver, it'll just blow it out. It doesn't matter what kind of filter you use. With LRGB, it doesn't matter. And I'm in a Bortle 6, 6 or 7, in between there. So Pekka has another question. Optolong L Enhance or L Pro for galaxies? And that's a trick question, Pekka, because you can actually use both. The L Enhance will bring out some of the H alpha in the galaxies. The L Pro will actually bring up more of the dust lane in the actual galaxy.
Yeah. I would go with the L Pro, because the L Enhance is a dual band filter, so you're looking at hydrogen and oxygen, whereas the L Pro will be more for broadband targets. I think even the IDAS filter would be better for that. There is some misrepresentation of dual band filters. I've seen a few sort of vendors selling them as light pollution filters, which is not strictly true. They are more a dual band filter. I have an L Extreme, which is one of the later version of the L Enhance here, which I just use on a color camera. I don't use it for light pollution filter, but they're not really light pollution filters. They will help you in a light polluted area, though, that's for sure. Come on, Annie, you're bound to have more questions.
Well, those are all questions.
Well, Annie's actually fixing to get a modified camera. I have a buddy that's all he does is he modifies DSLRs. Excuse me. And I went ahead and sent him her camera just so she can start taking images with it, so she can understand how the process works. Because what kind of spotlight do you have at your house, Annie? It's a big floodlight, isn't it?
I have two floodlights for my neighbors that are very quiet and live behind me. And then I have a huge street light in my driveway. And I live in a duplex. It's very small. So I don't really have a yard. So, I mean, I have one, but I don't really have one either. So, and I live way out. So it's kind of ridiculous that I have two floodlights pointed at the back of my house and a street light. It's just really strange, but it is what it is. But from what Tyler was just saying, he's going to let me borrow his stuff, because that's what I got out of the conversation.
That's what
he
I
was
heard.
just saying.
That's what I heard, Annie. Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
You will sign an equipment release form, and you're completely reliable.
An equipment release form.
So Annie, the best way
Releases it
is
from her hands and it falls to the ground.
Yeah. The best way is just to find, somewhere. I live in a very safe country, and I live out in the middle of nowhere. But the best way is to find somewhere safe that you can go that is dark. Don't go on your own. Take somebody with you, and take Tyler. Take the T-Rex with you, and go find a local park or somewhere dark, and go out and have a play. Take a tripod out and just see what you can do, and then you can get Tyler to loan you some filters and see what works best for you.
I've actually done some stuff at my house. I just have a little Canon Rebel XS that I started using that, I mean, literally it's worth about $50. It's from the years like 2007 or something like that. So I just, that's what I use. And then I also have a T5i that I've started kind of messing around with, but my goal is to start shooting with an actual camera first, and then attach a telescope to it. So I've done some stuff on it on a what we call our Mazzo 1 mount, which is a manual mount. And so then I got that IXOS 100 that I've got set up in my living room that I need to get out. So,
they're great starts. Look, I mean, I my first Astro camera was a secondhand Nikon D5300 I bought for a few $100s off of eBay. And that ran me for quite some time. I even felt safe enough to tear it apart and take the filter out and turn it into a wideband modified camera, which probably isn't something that everybody would have a go at. But the low price on these, you can buy your T5, the T3, you can buy these real cheap. And the Ixos mounts, they're really great for low cost mount for astrophotography. Tyler and I have been working on that Ixos 100 and how to connect it to things like the ASI Air, create a little astrophotography rig. You don't have to spend a vast fortune to get into astrophotography. And Scott and I, we were talking just before the program started, even about smartphone astrophotography. Challenge around that is again the same problem, is always the light pollution. Finding somewhere, if you can find somewhere darker, then that makes a lot of difference. And we even did some photography in the city here, and you can get reasonable images and create reasonable images even in city boundaries. As I say, you just need to modify your approach, and maybe even the expectations of what you will get, but you will definitely create some images even in cities.
Well, that's what was crazy about my when I got out my camera. I didn't notice how much light pollution was at my place until I actually went and tried to find the darkest location, which was actually in between my house and my neighbor's house. And then I started taking pictures, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to get much. I'm new to this. And so I brought my pictures in. I think the second time I brought my pictures in, I had what was it, Tyler? I had a galaxy in there. and you pointed it out. Do you remember what it was?
Andromeda's galaxy in your picture, and you didn't
nice.
even know it.
Very nice.
Yeah, she did really well just pointing it, just literally click and go. I can't remember how long the exposure was. Was it 30 seconds?
Well, I played around with that. So I had longer exposures and then I had shorter exposures. So I just kept playing around with it. And then I went in and stacked them in Adobe Lightroom, which is what I'm used to. I'm not used to all these other people start talking about all this other software. And, you know, here I am. The type of background I have is real estate photography. So, you know, I'm used to using Adobe Lightroom. And so that's what I just started stacking photos in there. And, but it's been great because I'm excited to get out and try to do some more stuff. But I opted to have Tyler modify my cheaper camera just because my T5i is a little newer than that XS. And I thought, okay, well, let's see what I can get out of that 2007 camera, what kind of photos I can get out of it. Cause I kind of want to see the extent I can stretch.
There is one, actually, Annie, there is a website where you can actually look at satellite pictures of light pollution. So even in the city boundary, you can actually have a look in your local area and see, is there an area that is maybe further away from light sources that may have just even, you know, a smaller amount of light? It doesn't take much. In here in the city in Christchurch, you only need to be 10 or 15 minutes out of the city boundary to find you know, a dark spot. We have a recreation area, which is McCall McLean's Island. There you go. And you know, you can just drive 10 minutes out of the city and find a dark spot. But yeah, look at that. Wow. That East Coast is looking, it looks pretty big. It's Springdale. Oh, there you go. Ouch. But you can see there, you know, and
where are you at again, Annie? I can't remember.
What's
I'm
the
in
scale of that? So 5 kilometers.
I'm a Bottle 3.
Oh, you're in Bottle 3. Wow. Okay, that's pretty good.
Well, she's got two gleaming lights, and that's where she's got to get away from, is those lights.
He's in a Bortle 3 sky with Bortle 9 floodlight.
Yeah.
So you can see there, look,
100%.
that's a really good picture there, look. So if you look at the scale, there's 2 kilometers there on the bottom left. You don't need to go very far out of the city. And if you look at it, Goshen, they've got way less light than if you were in maybe the, you know, downtown Fayetteville. So you don't need to go that far out of the city. But you go further, zoom further out, Tyler. I don't know how far out you would need to go. So there you go. That where the edge of that blue is.
Tyler, you're looking in the wrong area of where I live. I live in Prairie Grove.
Doesn't matter. It's the concept.
Oh no, because see, I'm over here by Center, and that's like, yeah, it is the concept. I understand.
Yeah.
But
so yeah, so you could go maybe 40-50K out of the city, and you know, and then you're out of the major light pollution. Yeah. You'll still see it. You'll still see it in, you know, if you look closer to the horizon. That's the other thing, is that don't try look too low. So Tyler and I were talking about this the other night, because we were talking about, you know, I like to wait until targets are, you know, 25 to 30 degrees above the horizon. Tyler was berating me because he was losing imaging time, but I'm like, patience, Padawan. You have to wait. I wanted
to see what the frame looked like.
Wait, patience. he has no patience. I found that out.
I agree. 100%. None.
So get that face. That's only a face a mother could love. So yeah, you really just, you know, just don't try and image too low in the horizon. Try and look, you know, more vertical. The higher you are in elevation, the less light pollution you're actually going to see. Obviously, if you're looking low down across the city, then you're really going to see a lot more. But and then, you know, try and avoid, if you are out further out of the city, try and avoid looking at the light. Try and look the opposite way. That's a good tip actually for a moonlit night as well. If you want to image on a moonlit night, look the opposite way from the moon. Don't look towards the moon, look away from it. Right. And that can really help as well. But yeah, that's nice, Tyler. It's amazing how much light you have over there on the East Coast. That's I've never really looked at that.
I got
But
quite
we
a
have
bit.
some more questions.
Sure, fire away. Let's
Okay,
go.
so the first one, is from Josh Kovac. I'm sorry if I said your last name wrong, Josh. What really is the benefit of longer exposures aside from data storage?
Oh, so that's a real simple one. The whole basis of astrophotography is signal to noise. So the longer exposure, the more signal you're getting, the less noise that you will see, because you can then start to stack and integrate more signal. When you come to post-process, then there is there's more signal than noise. The other thing is as well is that the longer exposures that you have in terms of integrated time. So that's the other thing. A lot of people get hung up about exposure length versus integration time. The more integration time that you have, the more exposures that you've captured over a period of time, the more contrast you have, the more signal, and the more definition, and the easier it is to process as well. But if you're in a light polluted area, you can build up the integration time. If you can only do 1 minute exposures, but you'll be capturing thousands of 1 minute exposures versus someone who is living out in the country who can do, say, 15 minute subs. But you eventually will come to the same result. So if you do a 1 hour exposure of one single image, but you do 60 1 minute exposures, the data that you're going to collect is pretty much the same, but unfortunately the 60 frames are going to mean a lot of data and a lot of processing, because you've got to integrate all of that data, which, unless you've got a really powerful computer, starts to eat into some time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. What you're looking for, long exposures is, or long integration time versus long exposures. Get that right. The more integration time, the better. The more signal that you have, the better the contrast of the image, and the more detail that you can capture.
Okay, so the next question is again from Pekka Hautala. How much should I increase ISO when using L Pro? If ISO is at 800 without is good for
on a DSLR, Pekka,
not to overexpose. He's trying to not. He doesn't want to overexpose.
Yeah. On a DSLR, I would not alter the ISO. I would leave the ISO where it is, because unless I must boundary that with with some rules. If you have a modern mirrorless camera, something like a Sony A7, for example, those series, their ISO that they have on those cameras is, the noise is low right across the range. But if you have an older camera, then I wouldn't increase the ISO. ISO is just increasing the gain. What I would actually do is increase the exposure length until you've got to a point that you are capturing data but not flooding the sensor with light. So it's like any cooled camera in astrophotography. Don't change the gain, really change the exposure time as a basic rule. So yeah, expose slightly longer, but don't change the ISO. Because if you're changing the ISO, you're just going to increase the noise, which is going to make, that balance between signal and noise even harder. Cool.
Okay, so again, he's got another question again. It says, okay, hang on just a second. The biases with DSLR gives more noise than reduces. I'm not quite for.
He wants to know if the biases on the DSLR gives you more noise and it reduces. Which
does the bias get? Well, no, the bias is just, yeah. On a DSLR, you're kind of stuck with bias anyway. So it won't add. It does add a slight noise to the image, but in processing, you're reducing that bias signal by removing it from the processed image. That's why you take darks and lights, and you take the bias and calibration frames and flats, etc., to remove those signals. But the older sensors tend to be more noisy. More modern sensors tend to have low noise, and cooled cameras are a different ball game again. Even the lower end, cheaper cooled cameras would give better performance than a DSLR. So if a DSLR is all you've got, you just make the best that you can with it. But yeah, biases are still required.
Yeah. Jim's Astro watching on YouTube wants to know, what is Simon's thought on ZWO's Zwo Mount?
Oh, well, I will tell you very shortly when I start my testing. I think it'll be really, really good. Without stealing Explore's thunder. Because you guys do great.
This is it's not a branded show.
But I mean, you guys do some great mounts at the right price point for the right level. And I think the ZWO mount will be really interesting. It's it's a harmonic drive mount. So the idea of these is a very small. They can carry a high load. They have a high torque for their size. So it'll be really interesting. The price point is about half of what's on the market at the moment. It should be quite good. It'll be an interesting one because obviously ZWO is a camera manufacturer branching out into mounts. So that's an interesting concept in itself because building a camera versus building a mount is a very different a different production facility, different approach. I think it'll be really good. I'm talking to Sam and the team. I've been involved with pre-production questions, and I'm quite excited by it. It'll be a nice little portable mount for astrophotography. It's the kind of thing you can put on a carbon fiber tripod, put in a bag, and take away and put a camera on it or a small telescope. I mean, this thing's got up to a 13 kilo payload with the carbon fiber tripod without a counterweight, or 20 kilos with the counterweight. That's a sizable amount. Yeah. Harmonic mounts do have some downsides to them, and they have a high periodic error, but you can guide those out to a limited extent as well. So as long as you're not I think it'll be great as long as you're not looking for too long a focal length. Big SCTs, long focal lengths of meters, I think will be a challenge because of that high periodic error. But I think putting in a bag with a small refractor, 80 millimeter, and a camera will do really, really well.
So there's one question, since we're talking about the ZWO mount now, we kind of went off topic a little bit. What about the huge PE, periodic error?
Yeah, well, that's inherent in a harmonic.
Yeah,
it's inherent in the harmonic drives. All of the drive manufacturers that create harmonic mounts, they all have the same problem. They have high periodic errors. So why would you buy one versus a standard mount? Well, Correct. They're small. They're small. They're They have a lightweight. They have a high load capacity. For the size. So if you were going on a trip to Hawaii or into Chile or something like that, to a dark sky, or and you wanted a small lightweight mount and camera in a bag, that would be fantastic. But I wouldn't, personally wouldn't be putting one in, on a pier in an observatory at home. I think there's far better options than that. But again, they're aimed at a certain niche in the market. There's a lot of camera trackers. I would say that are kind of a step up from a camera tracker. You can, you've got the things like the Star Adventurers and the Sky Guiders, etc., which are kind of Fornax mounts and things like this, which are great for DSLRs, tiny, lightweight. But if you want something that can carry a bigger load, then that would give you a good option.
Mhm. Agreed.
Somebody, Gideon Sanders is asking how do you really extract the blue when doing lights with an L extreme filter?
Sorry, say that again, Annie. How do you?
It says, how do you extract the blue when doing lights with an L extreme filter? How do you really extract them?
Oh, okay. So there's a couple kind of post-processing question. I'm not so sure about AstroPixel processor, but in PixInsight, which is a software package for astrophotography processing, you can actually separate out the channels in RGB. You can process that blue. The problem with the multi-band filters is that hydrogen will come out as red, oxygen will come out as blue. Some tri-band filters will try and bring out the greens as well, but it's very, very much about processing how to boost those particular channels. But one way is to split them out into RGB in Pix and then kind of process one channel and then recombine them. There's been a few tutorials about those online. If you look on YouTube and look for dual band filter processing in, say, PixInsight. In Photoshop or something like that, yeah, you can. I'm not sure if you can extract different channels in Photoshop. I guess you could, but then you have to try and boost them.
Yeah, because since he's using the L extreme, he's wanting to see, since that's a HA and an O3, like you were saying. But all he's mainly seeing is red. And that's the band pass of that particular filter. It doesn't matter if there's any red in there. That's all you're mainly going to see is that red.
The way to do that I do it in Pix is that if you go into one of the curves transformation, you can generally drag down the red to reduce the prominence of it, and then drag up the blue to bring up those blues. The problem is that when you look at a lot of narrowband targets, hydrogen is the dominant color, right? Because it is the dominant gas in them. So you kind of have to sort of knock down that red and drag up that blue. It's a bit of practice how to get them, but you can come out with. I've got a few examples I can get. If Tyler gives me the contact after, I can send him some images. He can flick them on. Yep. But you can balance them out. But yeah, it really takes a little bit of processing to balance those levels, or extract them. Extract the RGB and play with it that way. Cool. Anything else? Any other?
Okay.
I don't know if there's any more questions.
So I mean, Tyler, you've experienced imaging in a light polluted area, and you've been out to some dark skies. You find much of a challenge from home, or is it just harder processing?
Doing DSLR photography and dedicated astronomy photography, the difference cameras between a light polluted area and a non-light polluted area, it's a night and day difference. The exposure times are a lot shorter, especially for DSLRs, especially on the Milky Way galaxy. I can do a 30-second exposure in a Bortle 2 and a 1, and I can get immediate pop. Whereas at home, if I do 60 seconds, I'm still getting just white cloud. Even with an L Pro or the I think Optolon came out with the EOS R filter that clips in. So it does make a huge difference as far as exposure length for what you're wanting to capture 100% of the time. And Joel Sweetman asks if Simon has a YouTube channel. And I don't know if Simon does or does not, to be honest.
I'm in the process of building one, and it's actually aimed very much at the beginners. I find a lot of the YouTube channels, obviously people get really, really complex on them. They're very knowledgeable people, incredibly knowledgeable. And there are you know, there are people like Sean Nielsen probably leave me standing when it comes to you know, Pix Insight processing. He runs a really great YouTube channel on processing. But what I find is that stuff goes really quick. People go from 0 to 100, and the beginners get left behind. And it's a really simple questions. Tyler and I have talked about this a lot. The same questions keep getting asked. You know, I got this new cooled camera. You know, what do I do with it now? How do I use it? What do I do with it? How do I connect it? You know, what is back focus? You know, what filters should I use? You know, it's the same kind of questions time and time again. So that's what we're looking at to try and to answer, because the beginners should not get left.
Yeah, it shouldn't be so much of a struggle, really.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
You know,
and look, you know, I get a lot of people who join our Astro Society here in Canterbury, and you know, one of the key questions they ask is, you know, I want to get into astrophotography. How do I, you know, I want to produce images like, you know, I see in the magazines here, and you're like, okay, this is it's not instant gratification. It's not instant gratification here. You don't buy 20 grams worth of gear and end up with a, you know, photograph of the day on the, you know, on the NASA site. It takes a lot of experience, and also, unfortunately, location really does help.
So in regard to locations in New Zealand, where do you recommend that people go for the best astrophotography?
Well, anywhere really out of the big cities, and we're really fortunate here. So Christchurch, for example, we have 300,000 people, and that's one of the largest cities in the South Island here. 15 minutes out of the city is fine. I live about 40 minutes south of Christchurch. I'm in a Bortle 2-3. And even just further south of me down towards Tekapo. Tekapo is where the observatories have their setups from the universities. They are not much better than I am in terms of sky. North Island is pretty good as well. There are some nice dark spots at the top end of the North Island. But here in Canterbury, once you're off the plains, the challenge that we have living out here on the Canterbury Plains is the weather, because we get a lot of ocean winds. They bring in moisture, and then we get a lot of cloud. But if you go inland, it gets a lot drier and a lot clearer. But pretty much anywhere out of the city in New Zealand, and you'll get good skies. But yeah, further south here in the South Island is the place. Mount Cook National Park around Tekapo. That's where they have the observatories. That's some of the best skies in the country because they don't have the easterly winds. It's a central plateau, and it's quite dry. Did you know that we have a desert in New Zealand? We have a desert in New Zealand. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yep. Huh. If you go, not a desert like you have in Arizona, but if you go to the North Island and drive from Wellington up to Auckland, you'll go through the desert region in the center of the center part. What it is the prevailing winds, they hit the high mountains to the west. The winds basically are dry, diabatic. They come down the eastern side, and they're warm and dry, and basically the vegetation is very desert-like. So it's even called the desert
and everything.
Yeah. It's even called the desert road. There you go.
So Simon, cool. One more question from Gideon. He says, are earthquakes an issue in New Zealand, and does it have a detrimental impact on AP or astronomy in general? I think the main issue you have is it gets real cold and real hot and rains constantly.
You know, one of the very, very famous New Zealand bands they sang about 4 seasons in one day, and they were actually singing about the weather here. But yeah, the weather here can be a little bit strange. We live, you know, Australia is 2,500 kilometers to the west of us. East, the next landfall is the west coast of the USA. It's a 13-hour flight to LA, and there is nothing, is water. So we're in an oceanic climate here. In terms of astrophotography and earthquakes, not particularly. We don't get huge numbers of earthquakes. The challenge that we did have in the earthquakes we had a few years ago, we actually had to realign our 16-inch Meade RCX 400 because the ground had moved under us. And that actually we had shifted polar alignment.
Wow.
So we literally had to realign our because just about a mile to 2 miles to the north of me is the Greendale Fault, and that's where the first of the New Zealand earthquakes in the South Island here. It used to be the longest, straightest road in New Zealand. It's now like this. It has a 8-meter difference in the road. They actually had to straighten the road out because the fault line slipped. So one part of the country went one way, the other part went the other way.
Good Lord.
So, yeah, and that slipped right across Canterbury. So yeah, we don't generally get a problem. The other problem we get a lot of volcanic ash if there are and fires from Australia. If they have big bushfires in Australia, then we get a lot of smoke. And we've had also volcanic ash from South America as well. So, yeah, it's a challenge.
The issue you would have would be tumbleweeds from the desert that you were just describing from it.
It's really interesting. This year, Tyler was mentioning there about the weather. Normally in this time of the year in January, we'll have been in a fire ban season for about a month because it's normally so dry. We get 30, 35 degree centigrade heat in the summer, which and it's dry and warm. We get fire conditions. But this year we are in an El Nino where we're getting rain and cold and overcast conditions. I haven't imaged for months. It's been a real challenge.
What are you talking about? You've imaged from my backyard.
Yeah, image from home. My bestest new buddy in the US lets me use his telescope. And it's good. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. But when you're living on an island in the South, in the South Pacific, you do the best that you can.
So I found one picture that I think we can end the show on. It greatly describes what light pollution can do to a backyard. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, and this is what you can expect to see.
Yeah.
From light pollution, from 8 to a 9, most major cities, Tokyo, Dallas, any huge major cities, you could barely make out stars. And as you slowly degrade into the 1 to 0 aspect, which I don't even know if there is a technical 0, naked eye, this is supposedly naked eye seeing. This is how much light pollution impacts visual or astrophotography in general. And that's what I wanted to mainly concentrate on. If you want to get more involved with your light or in your city as far as how to fix light pollution in your area, I know there's links out there, and that's not kind of what this show's about. And I do know there are some people like Bruce McMath here in Arkansas that concentrates heavily on light pollution. Scott, you may have to help me what he heads.
I'm sorry. What
Bruce McMath. He does
Bruce
light
McMath. Yeah, the Arkansas Natural Skies Foundation, I think is what it's called. But let me double check that.
But there, if you have any astronomical groups in your area, there's usually 1 or 2 people that try to head up what is called light pollution fighters, I'll call them. They try to either get with the city to either put lampshades over lights so it doesn't go up. They try to change lights that doesn't harm the actual lighting environment so we can preserve it. This is a huge difference from 9 to 1. When Simon was talking about the differences with me with dedicated astronomy equipment in the city and a non-city is you could literally see the Milky Way naked eye. And that's where I think we need to try to get back to, but it's hard now at this point day and age. But if you have a chance to go to a dark sky site, take images, I'm telling you, it's going to blow your breath away. You will not want to image from anywhere else but there.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of the remote facilities, they're generally well away from cities in dark skies. But yeah, just bring that back up again, Tyler, just that image. There's something really important here. So if you live in the city in a 7 or an 8, don't give up, have a go. But the best way that you can manage your imaging is just get out of the city, just even a small distance. Use a lightweight telescope, lightweight mount, and go spend some time, just drive even sort of, 40, 50 kilometers out of the city, get down. If you look at the difference between a 5 or a 4 versus a 7 or 8, that to me is one of the best ways of combating it. If you can't, then you do your best you can. These are broadband as well. So that's the other thing to note about this image, is that this is, naked eye. This is broadband. You're looking at the sky. So, when I look at the night sky and I'm in a 2 to 3 down here at the right-hand side, that really is what we tend to see. Whereas, obviously Tyler in that sort of 6 to 7 up the other end there, he'll only see the brighter stars, but it doesn't stop him imaging. He just has adapted his equipment and optics so that he can image at that sort of 6 and 7. But if you can spend a little bit of time, build a lightweight rig and get out of the city, or even at least move out of the city by a small amount, finding yourself a darker spot at the edges of a city, then you can you can actually make a go of it. But there are people that image in places like Tokyo and actually produce images. So don't give up. Don't get disheartened. Just choose the right gear.
If you need some motivation, you don't have to be afraid. You can email me, Tyler at Explore Scientific, or Annie or Simon.
Yeah, reach out.
Reach out. If you get discouraged, if you hit a bump in the road, we're here to help. We're here to guide. And that's why we're here at Explore Scientific, is to help the customer. We want you guys to succeed no matter what the obstacle is. And we will literally figure out the answer to get you back and going again. Now, I know Annie has one more announcement before we finally end the show. So I'm going to turn it back over to Annie so she can say what's up.
I actually told you to announce it. Do not forget to enter our Meteor Contest. That's pretty much it. Do not.
You can win it. One image. You can win it.
One image. One image. One.
Please and thank you.
And what is the first place prize? Like a new car or a house or Lamborghini, something like that?
I believe it is a $100 gift card.
That's pretty good.
That's close.
Yeah.
It's a $100 gift card.
That is some fraction of an amount of down payment for it.
That's an air freshener. It's an air freshener.
Had some help with the filter.
Better than a stick in the eye.
So somebody is asking what the contest is. It's a Astrophotography Contest on. You can find the where you submit. Where you submit your pictures on under our Explore Alliance page. It's just submitting photos of meteors. So we just usually have a topic, and so this is what we're focusing on this go around. And so there's four placements. First place wins $100 gift card, upgraded membership, and of course a print of your photo. Second place is, I believe, a $75 gift card, upgraded membership, and a print of your photo. Third place is, I believe, a $50 gift card, print, and upgraded membership. And then we have a new category, never before entered, and that's I believe Tyler, right? It's a $25 gift card, upgraded membership, and a print. Mm-hmm.
Now that print size is 18 by 24. That's a big print. So you can do your whatever meteors that you have. I don't care if it's a satellite, you think it's a meteor. I just want images to come in. We want people to get active within the community and just send us some stuff. And that's what it's all about, is to get you guys out there and imaging. That's what we want.
Yeah,
Right.
out there doing it. That's the way to.
Other than that,
Okay.
Pooh Bear's out.
Pooh Bear's out. You're going to do like the microphone drop thing and everything. So.
No, that's your job. You sign us off.
Okay. All right. Well, I will sign us off at this point. We have, we've got a full week of programming next week, including the 80th Global Star Party, which I'm going to let customer service beat me into submission to figure out an amazing door prize for the 80th Global Star Party. So this is not going to be your run-of-the-mill doors prize. This is our
Telescope.
80th, right?
Telescope.
Telescope. So anyhow, we love having the audience interact with us today and ask so many interesting questions. Be sure to tune back in to Focus on Astrophotography next Friday at 4 Central. And I don't think I have anything more to add. Anybody else in our group?
Simon, I appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy person. Annie, I appreciate your time because I know you are also busy as well. Scott, again, appreciate you putting on a great show that you always do here at Explore
You
Scientific.
guys did it. I just like connected the cables. So.
He just
Thank you
he
again. Yeah.
illustrated it.
Thanks for the invite, guys.
And
I
don't
love
forget,
it.
also
It's great.
Simon's going to be on Global Star Party, our 80th anniversary. So that's really great. So
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's awesome.
yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Like giving back.
That makes
to
it
the-
more global when you have people around the globe presenting. So, all right.
Yeah.
Take care and let everybody know that's an amateur astronomer that we said hello down in New Zealand. Okay, Simon? There might be a couple that you might have
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. And thanks for the invite. Great to be on again.
All right. Take care. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective at protecting you from COVID-19, especially severe illness and death. Vaccinated people are far less likely to be hospitalized or die because of COVID-19, including the Delta variant. COVID-19 has a much harder time spreading in a vaccinated population. When more people are vaccinated, we are all better protected against COVID-19. Even if you're young and healthy, it's still important to get vaccinated. Vaccines can help end this pandemic. To get the most protection, make sure you get all recommended doses of a COVID-19 vaccine. Getting vaccinated helps protect you and others from COVID-19.
you.